Welcome to What's Your Story, where we, Jaime Marco,
and Stan Brown,
delve into the extraordinary lives of everyday people.
Listen in as we uncover the unique tales that shape who we are,
one story at a time.
Hey, let's get ready to explore today's story.
Let's do it. Hi, Dad.
Happy days, baby. Good morning.
Good day. Well, so I'm going to apologize. I'm eating.
Whoa, did you invite me for lunch?
I did. I'm eating. It's interesting. So someone asked me the other day, like, when do you find time to do these podcasts? And so that's a very good point. And we try to squeeze them in. We do, when we can find the time. And today, I'm multitasking. I'm eating.
I'm sure the people will find that absolutely fascinating.
Well, what is fascinating, though, as you may be aware, as of late, I've had to actually change my diet to not like a diet, but to eat more vegetarian-friendly food.
Yoga tip for the day directly from Sade's guru.
Mm-hmm.
You should not drink any liquids with your food. It could cause you to eat more than you should. So chew your food, but chew your food 25 times so it becomes almost water and liquid in your mouth. You get most of the nutrients out by full and total mastication. That's mastication with a C. And after you finish eating, very slowly, then drink it down with some water, lemon water, or whatever. But do not drink while you're eating. Just a tip
Each
for the day.
bite, 25 chews?
Every chew, 25 chews. So the food actually becomes liquid in your mouth. Much easier for digestion. Gets into your stomach because saliva. The first step of digestion is the saliva in the mouth. We don't have time for this today.
Anyway, so yeah,
no regurgitation. Yes,
it's interesting, as you're aware. So I'm open book. I don't really care. I've had a higher cholesterol in some of my tests lately, which is really interesting because I eat very healthy. I eat lots of protein. I don't eat anything really terribly bad for me. I'm pretty health conscious, but my cholesterol has been high. So I met with my doctor, and she was like, "Try taking out some of the meat from your diet and getting protein from different sources." So I'm trying to do that today. So I have a really interesting lunch, which is actually delicious. I have some kimchi, I've got some lettuce, I've got some sesame noodles, and it's pretty good.
Okay, I said, well, let's jump into the podcast.
No.
I'm not even getting hungry.
All right. So today, listener, we have someone, a blast from my past, someone I've known for over 20 years, who is just an incredible world traveler, has written a book. Actually, I should grab her book. Written one of many books. She's still writing some more. Let me grab the book.
For the record, I have not met her, nor am I related to her. Do I even know who she is?
That's not true. She's one of my college roommates and friends. So you have met her years ago. You just have zero memory of that. You'll know her when you see her. She's been at our house for holidays. So incongruent. We're excited to invite Melanie in, and let's just let her tell her own story. What do you think?
Melanie, come on down.
All right, here we go. She's super Zoom savvy, so we don't have to worry about not knowing how to be on camera. She's super Zoom savvy. Hi, Mel.
Hello,
Hi.
Zoom savvy. Hello.
I'm like, we'll be in a minute. And I was like, oops, I was like, oh, whatever. Anyways, we were just talking about you and just giving you an idea. So our intro was that
She's eating, by the way.
I am eating. So sorry. I'm eating my lunch because it's the only time I have. I've got to go from here to another appointment. And so I do apologize.
Actually, it's the cheapest way to take you to lunch.
It is, really is. But I was saying that I recently had to change my diet due to like high cholesterol or higher cholesterol. So I'm trying to go more vegan, vegetarian combination piece. And so I was telling my dad what I was having, and you said, as interesting as this is not, we should let our guest in.
This was my genetic gift to you. Unfortunately, it's coming out a little bit later than I expected, but you can control it. You'll be fine.
Thanks, Dad. But
so
Mel,
Melanie, how's your cholesterol?
My cholesterol is great. I do not have that affliction.
Ooh, which afflictions do you have? Only
No. We'll get there, maybe. But okay, so
open that door.
Listen, I have this right here with me. Her book. If you're a listener, if you're listening, I'm holding up Melanie's book. But Melanie has so much more of a story than what her book tells, and what got to the book. And so, before we even get started, it's Monday. Or whatever day someone's listening to this, actually, I'll just scratch it out. Whatever day they're listening to it. But today, on a scale of 1 to 10, one being that you should not have gotten out of bed to even speak with us, you should not be interacting with other humans because you're just badly contagious, so all that, bleh, to a 10 being it's the best day you've ever lived in your life. What is your number today, Mel?
Oh gosh. Today is a solid 9.8.
Amazing.
Woo!
Yeah, last week I barely made it to a 3 all week long because I was in decompression mode from a really fantastic writers retreat in LA, and I just never really caught up on sleep or mental capacity. But this weekend I hermited, I decorated for Christmas, I just stayed on the couch and watched football, and that made for a great Monday.
So
I love it.
did that retreat kind of slow your brain waves down a little too much?
It just filled my cup so much information, so many authors that I had wanted to meet for a long time were there, so many authors that I got to interact with that were new and budding, and I made a writers community here in Colorado from that retreat.
Nice.
It was just so much, it was so much overflow. And I came back to a really tough week. So I flying in on a Monday night. My busiest day of the week is Tuesdays.
Mm.
I have 10 clients that I meet with on Tuesdays. And so flying in late on a Monday night to roll into a really busy Tuesday was
Not a good plan, not a good plan.
not a good plan. Yeah.
Wow. And I love how you said you started decorating. Now, this is airing probably sometime in April, or maybe, I don't know when it's airing. Listener, just bear with us.
There you go.
But I love that like you kind of found that time to decompress and get there. And that's, I think, been like a kind of like a part of your path always. Like you, like just like, when I think about, I've known you for a long time, we've known each other since college. And so just knowing like what you do, you've always been like pushing really hard. Like you've always been someone who's tried to achieve so much. And so how do you like know when it's time to decompress? Like how do you like what are the signs for you that it's like, Melanie, you need to slow down?
I'll be perfectly honest. It took me all of, 40 something years to figure that out. Because I was always a driver. And I also, I have been recently diagnosed with ADHD, as many women in their 40s
We've
have.
all got that. Come on, everyone's
Yeah,
got
because
that.
you said.
Seriously, yeah. And it's, the research behind it is really interesting. The way that they diagnosed it when at the age when we were children were only symptoms that showed up in boys. And so women just didn't get diagnosed. And a lot of them are being diagnosed as adults. Really fascinating research around it, deep, deep research. But what it says when you have what I call a spicy brain is
Hmm.
you can kind of overcome some of the natural triggers your body has to stop that are trying to tell you, please stop, please slow down, until we can push ourselves all the way till we're sick or till we're overwhelmed or till we're, burning bridges that we should not burn in relationships or friendships or colleagues or work. Because we can just override those sensations. And finally, at this age, I finally figured out I can't be the best version of me for my clients, for my work, for myself, for my partner, for my friends, my family, if I don't listen more closely to my body and give it what it needs and just stop. And I had to get over the little gremlin that says, "Oh, you run your own business. You've got to be working all the time, all the time." And I had to say, no, I don't have to work all the time. I have to work smart and I have to be well rested.
Hmm.
Which goes back to my premise that all things spring forth from relaxation.
Yes.
People think we work better under stress. Not true, totally, but that's okay. But yeah, I hate these labels we put on ourselves. Americans, they compartmentalize everything. ADHD, it's not a bad thing. It's
No.
something probably Einstein probably had that situation. It's how you manage it and how you work it out. But the
Yeah,
labels
I
can
think it's
be
a superpower. I think
absolutely.
it just needs to be harnessed in the right way. And we have to give up some of the like I said, I love gremlins are my thing in terms of like the voices that tell us things that they shouldn't. So I mean, we have to give up the gremlins that everybody's brain works the same way, and that what the status quo is for someone else is not the status quo for you. And so just figuring
Sure.
yourself out and being willing to adapt, adapt your behavior and adapt your rhythms and your patterns and your workflow accordingly. And it can be really a superpower.
Well, some
How
days
are
you can juggle
you?
more than most days. Sometimes the juggling becomes overwhelming. You're going to drop a lot of balls. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, that's my
Yeah.
question. So, what are you doing to like now that you have this or diagnosis? Oh, why like knowing that you were like that? how has the diagnosis helped you, and what prompted you to want to get the official diagnosis? Asking for a friend who probably is in the same situation.
Someone you know,
You
Jamie?
know,
Yeah.
honestly, I had a very really do asking for a friend. I had a very good friend who did a full brain mapping. Her father died and some other things happened in her life, and she really just needed to understand some of her own behaviors. And it was part of some therapy she was doing, part of her own self-growth. And when her and I were talking through this really interesting document, and she was like, "Do you have this? Do you struggle with this? Is this something that people have told you?" And it just started to resonate, and I just started to get curious.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm not self-diagnosing. I'm gonna just read about this. I'm gonna continue to explore. And so I spent about a year like just kind of exploring, touching on it, reading things, talking to people, taking some of the self-assessments, some of the the ones that you can do first, and then they'll direct you to a professional. And so what it helped me do is just to give myself grace. Honestly, that's the biggest thing, was to say, hey, this is not a flaw, this is a difference. And you just need to love on yourself, that this is the way that you can harness that. And for me in my work, running, I've, a couple different businesses, and I have to have really strict guardrails. That's what works for me, right? I can't do a morning of one business and an afternoon of another.
Mm.
I have, Mondays are designated for one thing and Tuesdays for another and Wednesdays. And I really have to do that for myself. Those are the guardrails that work for me, because I can keep my brain from being completely distracted and all over the place by just saying, I'm walking into this job today, even though it's the same office every day. I'm walking into this job on a Monday, and this is what I do. And really getting um, strict with myself about that, and it works. And then I can really harness the power of hyperfocus and the power of creativity and all of those things that come
I think
along
it's
with.
very fortunate you were actually worked up to be your own support group. I mean, you harnessed this, you worked it through, and I mean, a lot of people would need outside support for that, but by doing it yourself, you know how to go forward. And by the way,
Yeah.
what the heck do you do?
What
This
does,
is
I
No,
great.
hold on.
mean, what does
Can I
she
ask not
not
just on a
do?
Monday, but a Monday, a Tuesday, and a Wednesday?
What does she
Yeah,
not?
yeah. So I have two businesses. One is called In Pursuit, also kind of self-branded as MelanieSueHicks.com, or Melanie Sue Hicks myself. And then I own a small publishing house called Inked Elephant Publishing House. And then I'm contracted with a great company called AJS Consulting Group to do grant writing and help nonprofits with other grant related things. And then I run a program called Leadership Pikes Peak, which runs out of the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, uh, locally. And so I run that executive
How
leadership program
soundly do you sleep at night?
really soundly, actually.
Really?
I am very strict about I go I go into my bedroom with a book, a non blue screen book by 8 p.m. and I am asleep by 9 p.m. And
Mm.
that is because I wake up between 4:45 and 5:30 depending on the day, and what I have going on. And so I need the sleep. And so yeah, I can't afford not to. And for example, last week I ran on a 3 all week because I just could not get the sleep. My flight came in late Monday.
Sure.
I had an event Tuesday night that put me back at home late again Tuesday. I kind of never caught up. And so, you can't do
Well,
that every day, but I'm really diligent, to the extent that I can about these kind of bedtime and prioritizing sleep. Things,
Wow.
the meme about things we hated as a child, going to bed early, taking naps, whatever, are things
that's
we
great.
reading
It's
a book,
terrific.
right? Things that I like cherish now.
Yeah, sign me up for that. I think it's like as you like progress in life, right? Like, so my dad's now in retirement age, and I was talking to my husband the other day, or David, David, and he was asking, I had asked my parents to pick my daughter up at school, and he was like, "Oh, why can't they keep her past a certain time?" I'm like, "Oh, they're going to dinner at 4:30." He's like, "They're going to dinner at what time?" I said 4:30, and that's what time my daughter used to eat dinner. So, Dad, you're almost making that full circle.
Second childhood, eh?
Yeah,
There you go.
uh-huh. Going to
There you go.
A
bed
He's
little,
right.
early.
a
He's
little
right.
intermittent fasting. A
What?
little intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Skip the breakfast, just eat all day long.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
But Melanie, so we could call you Dr. Hicks if we really wanted
Want to
to.
get formal. Want to get formal on
Yes,
it.
when we get formal. But you have had this like really, listen, I've known your path since you were about 18 years old. So you're a
Mhm.
little bit beyond that. But you have traveled down this incredible path, and you have a book that talks a lot about a part of your life. But where do you think that, your work ethic, your drive, and your ability to actually self-diagnose, not really, but like self-help yourself came from? Like, where did that innately come from that you're able to do that now?
I give a huge amount of credit to my folks. I have two amazing parents who, you know, no parent is perfect, but they did an amazing job at helping me understand their differences and use that to my advantage. So work ethic, comes from both of them. My father was a very just A, B, C, go very linear. He was a police officer. He had a side business my entire life of putting in sprinkler systems. He was, kind of a workaholic. But then when it was time to rest, we took summers off. We took 6 week travel vacations in an RV around the country every single summer growing up. And he would save up all his overtime and take it as comp leave. My mom was a teacher, so she had summers off, and we would just travel. And the priority was to just experience life and experience life as a family, experience other states. We were all basically North America domestic. We did do Canada and Mexico a little bit, but basically it was to see this great nation that we have and to understand the different cultures and the different landscapes and all of these things. And so instilled in me as a young child was work really hard and then enjoy the fruits of that labor. And that balance, however you have to make it work, um, became really important. And also just this idea that differences are beautiful and we should learn about them and we should be curious and we should have wonder. And so that has carried, through. I did my first service project at 10 years old. I went to Mexico and fed the needy and used like drama skills. We were actually a mime group because we couldn't speak Spanish. So we like did these plays with no words. And it was very early on that planted a seed in me that connecting with others in service is a really powerful just way to experience the human experience. And so I continued to do that. And as my resources grew when I was in my 20s and then my 30s, and I had more resources, I could go to farther places. I could connect with nonprofits that were doing really good work. And part of my trip was a donation to them. And part of it was hands-on, in kind, elbows deep in places like Sierra Leone and, um, India and Nepal and all of these places that I had the privilege of working with people in service. And that was just something that has always been a really important part of my life. And I give my parents perfect credit for that
Melanie,
because
how many
they instilled
siblings?
that. I'm sorry?
Siblings?
I have a half brother. We did not grow up together. So he joined the Marines when I was 3 years old. And so we're still in touch. In fact, I'm Auntie Mel to his daughter, and we're very, her and I are very close. But yeah, we didn't share the same childhood. So really, I grew up kind of as an only child. So books, and a lot of alone. I got
Where are your
really
friends?
comfortable being
Sure.
alone a lot. Yeah.
And you've turned that into an incredible life. I mean, I think that, like it just I know you personally, so I know that you are very comfortable in your own skin and you are traveling the world. How many countries have you been to now?
44.
I mean, that's insane. Like 44 countries. And every time that you're going there, you're having some incredible adventure. You're doing something where you're giving back in their service. Where would you say has been like your most memorable experience?
Well, I have two places in the world that I call my second heart, my second home. And the first one is one that I think a lot of Americans will resonate with because it's not all that exotic. It's Tuscany, it's in Italy. I find getting out of the cities and going into the countryside is just, there's something cathartic about it for me. Tuscany, I find to be just absolutely beautiful and beautiful on the soul. And so that one is kind of, I don't know, accessible to people. People aren't that nervous about it. But my other heart country is Nepal. And I love, I just love the people. I love the culture. I love the fact that there is, obviously famous mountains. The Himalayan mountains are famous. Everest is famous. But then you can also go to the Sichuan Valley and it's jungle and wildlife and elephants and giraffes
Wow.
and it's really, really beautiful. But the culture is diverse. It's loving. They're really caring people. They welcome you in. I still am on WhatsApp with people. I bought art from an art store a couple of years ago, and every so often I get a WhatsApp message from the owner that just she invited me back the next day for tea, and we just talked. And so every so often she just checks in on me. She sends me holiday messages. It's just they're just a warm, friendly people, and if and their culture is fascinating, right? There's so many religions there, and they're ancient religions, and so they overlap in beautiful ways. And learning about them and learning about the ways that they um the similarities to kind of Western religions and also the differences. And I think that
Hmm.
just those things are really beautiful to understand. And you don't have to believe, the mantra of the world, right, is we should all think the same, which is crazy, or the mantra of America, I should say. But it's not true. Like if you can learn and understand and appreciate things that you don't take as your own. You're allowed to do that. And I think that's a message we don't tell people enough, that you're allowed to just understand and learn and appreciate and look
Yeah.
at it, you know, for the beauty that it is without
When
having
were
to
you
own
last
it
there?
as yours. I'm sorry.
When were you last there?
In 20 oh last well la 2023. So I went in September of 2023. I did a week long. This is the most interesting trip. It was just me and a guide, Rupen, who I've known for about a decade. I've known him. And we trekked through the jungles to
Hmm.
visit villages. I went on behalf of a nonprofit called Global Action Coalition, and they had not done any work in the country since the pandemic. But prior to that, they'd done a lot of work in the country. And they really wanted a scout, someone to say, where should we re-engage? We've taken a few years off because of the pandemic and then a few years after,
Yeah.
and they wanted to know where to engage. And so I went and um,
Just the two of you?
yeah, just the two of us. And we trekked through
Oh,
the jungles. I mean, we met people at each village, and I worked with women's
Incredible.
groups there about financial literacy. And we talked about the way that women come together to build different pieces of the society, and everything from kind of high society in the city to these villages where they are very isolated and they're cut off from any, big city. They grow all their food. One of the most amazing experiences was to be in a kitchen with the wife. So they call them homestays. It's where a person has an extra room and you rent it as you would kind of like an Airbnb,
Right.
but they
But
just
you're in
call it
their
homestays.
house. You're in
But
their
you're in
house.
their home, yeah. And so so the men were outside, I think, drinking tea and speaking in Nepalese. And I went in the kitchen with her to prepare dinner. And she speaks just a tiny bit of English, but we went out in her garden and we picked all the vegetables we were going to use. And then she taught me how to cook. And when I say a kitchen, we're talking about basically a shed with a dirt floor. I describe it as it was 38 items. There were 38 items in this, and that included the propane tank that fueled the two burner stove that you might see in like a 1980s college room, right? Before they banned those in dormitories. She had kind of one of every cooking utensil you might need, hanging on a nail that was just nailed to wood beams. She had, just enough bowls and plates for what people needed. I mean, it was just so beautiful and so simple. And she didn't speak English, but we had the most amazing night. And she taught me I came back with all the spices I needed to remake that meal. Of course, we can't get the vegetables right out of the garden here, but, or not in
It
my
would
house
have made an
anyway.
incredible video log. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, she
Took
is.
pictures of while you were there, I'm sure.
Oh yes, yes. And I took as many videos as I could, but I have a challenge when I'm in these places because I want to be super present.
Be like
And I
invasion
don't
of
always
privacy, I'm sure.
Right. And I don't always want to think, I'm trying to be really immersive and present. And then I go, oh, I wanted to capture that on video, but you can't redo it. So I have all these snippets of video when it doesn't feel intrusive, right? And I can just kind of like roll camera, so to speak. But there's also a lot of these moments that I can just, journal about afterwards and hope to write about in great enough detail to bring people into the story without a visual because I do really want to be present in those moments. So I do have
No,
some of the video of cooking, but
no danger element traveling a single woman with the guide in the jungle?
you know, yes.
That's the same thing. I mean, she's traveled all over the world by herself, and I think it's like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, share with us about like how you navigate that.
So, it started really small, right? I didn't have, I was divorced and didn't have children. I wasn't able to have children. So I had this interesting path of like, what do I want to do? I have resources. I have no partner. Do I sit around and wait for life to begin, or do I just start? And it started small. I have a bucket list to see a baseball game in every stadium. So I would go to an American city, stay in a fancy hotel, go to a baseball game, eat dinners by myself, read my book, whatever. And that felt, that was safe, that was comfortable, that
Yeah.
was, but and then the muscle kind of grew, right? Then it was, I will, for my 40th birthday, I had no friends that were able to kind of get away, and I wanted to go and hike the Inca Trail in Peru. And so I just joined up, but I joined up with a group, right? So I flew over there by myself. I spent 2 days by myself in Cusco, but then I joined a group, and I just enjoyed the company of the people. They were strangers until we finished hiking the Inca Trail, and then they were friends. And
We
you just
saw the we went to Machu Picchu. We saw the Inca Trail, and man, that's a 5 or 10 day hike. How long was that?
Yeah, it was only a 4 day hike, so pretty quick, relatively speaking, to like the Everest Base Camp trek. But it was great. It was really, I mean, I went, like I said, that one was, I call it glamping. I only had to carry a small pack. People, the company goes ahead of you and sets up your tent for you and cooks your dinner. So it's very much glamping, but it was beautiful. I mean, the trek is the trek, right? You reach 13,000 feet. That felt a lot when I lived in Florida, but now I live in Colorado and I climb 14,000 feet mountains all the time. So it doesn't feel that scary anymore. But at the time, it was a big deal. And yeah, it was a 4 day, 5 day, 4 night trek.
Everybody made it through. No dropouts.
No dropouts. No, everybody made it
Really?
through. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Some people
That's
were
not
slower than
her hardest trek. I mean, and
no,
I'll get into
no.
that in a second, but but you also like ended up in like Paris for a night, where it was like a stopover and you're there by yourself and you have to like go buy clothes and find a dress. And I mean, I don't know that, and I'm very independent. I've traveled a lot, not nearly as much as you have, but I don't know that I would be as confident or comfortable doing that alone. I think that's a superpower. I really do. I think that that's a really unique thing to be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't take that for granted, and I also don't assume that everybody is going to have the personality to do it. I'm an ambivert, right? Which makes, I think, the perfect superpower for this particular thing, because ambivert, for those who might not recognize the term, is like I sit right between introvert and extrovert, which means I know how to be still and be by myself. I carry an emergency book with me. It's like the joke, I call it the emergency book. It's just a book, but I carry a book with me everywhere I go because I don't particularly like reading on readers. I like real books. And
Sure.
so much so that my partner will be like, "Hey, we might have to, there might be a delay XYZ on this whatever trip. Do you have your emergency book with
Pull the
you?"
book out. Sure, it works.
I'm
What's
sorry.
that?
I said, pull the book out.
That's right. That's right. I am like so I have enough of that, like I can entertain myself. I love people watching, so I could sit on a park bench and sip coffee and people watch for hours.
Right.
But I also know how to like roll into a Parisian bar, speak just enough French to get the bartender's attention and have a conversation about what's the interesting story that, those interview kind of skills that will come out when I want to talk to people. And I think that both of those me from they keep the fear gremlins from telling me that you shouldn't be doing this or you shouldn't be there or whatever, because once you realize that everywhere you go you can find safety, you can find people who are friendly, you can find allies to help you. I mean, I got lost in the Czech Republic once. This story was not complete by myself, I was with a friend, but we took the train the wrong way and we got off on a platform, and there were two people on the platform standing there, and they had these some dangerously looking barking dogs, right? Um, and on chains, not leashes, chains. Um, and we don't speak Czech, right? And so we were like, okay, clearly we went the wrong way. Clearly we need to. And in the end, one of them came up and spoke English and asked us if we were okay. And, and we said we were trying to get, and he goes, just get back on the train, go the other way, you're fine. And they weren't actually scary at all. And sometimes, the things that could have been danger, right? It could have been, and we were definitely trying to keep to ourselves. And I was glad I had her with me at that moment. And yet you find that most of those things are, it's not to discount the fact that danger's out there, but it also stay alert, do the basics, try to keep yourself in safe places. I don't go out by myself at night in countries that you shouldn't go out by yourself at night, right? I have an escort, or
Let me
I
tell you, that last week when you had several days at a number three, it must have been absolute torture for you.
yes. Yeah,
Painful.
I do not like being in the deficit column on sleep and energy, because I have a lot that I want to get out and
All
do.
about balance, no
That's
question.
right. That's right.
Well, let's talk about that. Like you've got a lot. I mean, like 3 to 4. I think you only mentioned like three, but I know you've got like other projects that you're doing as well too. So you only have like three business branches. You're like the government. You're like the government. You've got three branches of
No one's like the
Right. Three
government these
branches,
days.
Melanie.
actually, I'm not going to talk about government. Don't worry, people. We're not talking about government. We don't talk about politics on this podcast. We don't talk about any of that. Um,
No.
but I think that, you also have like multiple other projects going on at any given moment as well, too. You're a documentarian, you work in film, doing that, you're creating different paths. So like you've written a book, you're writing another book, you're doing a book of poetry, you're helping authors write their books, you're ghostwriting books. I mean, you're like constantly
Oh
doing
my
things.
God, I'm exhausted.
I know, right? I mean, it's like, holy, like to ever feel like you're just not enough. You're like, oh, okay, I can't find time to write one book, and she's like doing all these things. But like what is it that keeps you just, and I know you talked about the fundamental things that your parents share with you, and that love of travel obviously came from your parents as well too. But how do you just keep going? Like, where do you find the energy? You go to bed 8 o'clock. I mean, is it like, is it diet? Are you drinking something? Are you eating something? Are you superhuman? Are you AI? Like, what are you doing to create that? But seriously, because some people, we talked with somebody last week and they were talking about how, listen, I have the same amount of time that everyone else does, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's just how you use your time, and talk through a little bit like about her work ethic and what that was like. So tell us about where do you like, yeah.
Jamie's stymied.
Yeah.
She's speechless. She's rarely speechless.
I love it. I, you know, I think a lot of it is just a raw curiosity. I have, and we can say, I now, attribute this some to ADHD and some just to just that curiosity that I mentioned earlier from my parents. I have a raw curiosity to 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 do all the things, right? So anything that is interesting enough to keep me up at night for even just a couple of days, I give myself the grace to explore it. Now, I had to get really, in order to like run life successfully, and I definitely failed at this in before I figured it out, right? I failed at it big time. In fact, I called 2023 kind of the year of failure because all of this came to a head in 2023 and really kind of life crashed a little bit for me. But what I learned from that, the kind of the poetry book that comes out next month, it's called Shaking Off the Ashes, and it's a collaborative work. It's not just me, but um, the discussions that were had in creating this idea that we do sometimes have to burn it all down and start over, and you rise from those ashes and you kind of shake them off and you grow. And so to answer your question, what I figured out is I just have to be okay to decide what gets my priority now and what has to be on the back burner. And it doesn't go away. I use two
Sure.
productivity apps. One is called MeisterTask and one is called Todoist, because MeisterTask is for big projects. So when I need to put something on hold for a little bit and I have to say, you know what, this is really interesting. I really want to explore it, but I can't do it right now. I can brain dump everything I think about when I have a random thought at 3 a.m. I can put it in there. I'm not going to lose it. It's not going away, but I cannot focus on it right now. And then the Todoist app I use for every day. It's my to-do list for the day. It's a digital to-do list basically. So it's like, and I had to also get realistic about that. I would go to bed sometimes and feel like I had 25 things on my to-do list and I only got 19 done. And I would feel shame around it, right? It sounds ridiculous now to say that, but that was real. I was setting my expectations for what I could get done in a single day so high. I was putting so much pressure on myself that I would feel this sense of failure if I didn't get it all done. And I had to back up and say, what is realistic to a productive but happy life balance in a day? And so now my to-do list never has more than 5 or 6 things, and usually 2 or 3 of those are things that are quick. I just can't forget them, right? I
Well,
need
I
to go
guess
grocery
you're not
shopping.
going to buy my short novel called Low Goal Setting for Success.
I think this is perfect. I think that's a
Can we get a small sample of the poetry? Can you give us a little insight of one of the poems?
oh gosh, I could hold on.
Oh, you should. Yes,
Oh
thank you.
God, when you're ready to write that book, she can help you write it and publish it.
That's right. That's right.
My goal is set so low, it may take a while.
Well, whoever's listening has now stolen your idea and will be doing that themselves.
That's right.
It's
I
actually
think that
it's a
is,
global movement.
Yes.
the slow food movement was a real thing that is still around and still comes about.
Slow food movement?
The slow food movement. So it started in Italy, I believe. I might be wrong, but it started in Europe somewhere.
Okay.
About going back to it's a counter to this fast food, fast culture.
Mhm.
Like remembering that food with simple ingredients but cooked with care, like using raw ingredients, cooking few ingredients is fine, but just like stopping to enjoy food instead of this grab and go, like the slow food movement. And I'm not an expert on it, so somebody in the audience can, be an expert and correct me. But basically, the premise is remembering that food is medicine for our
It's
bodies, that
life,
food
sure.
is joy, that food is whatever, and treating it as honoring it, right? So take building in cooking into and even if you're not the cook, building and eating as an activity, not in front of a TV, not in your
Hmm.
car on the way somewhere, not while you record a podcast. But
Jamie,
I
remember,
mean, it's hard. It's
Jamie,
hard,
chew
right?
25 times,
My
turn the food to
dad said
liquid.
that in the beginning. You missed it, but he was talking about dad. Tell her about the 25 times
Well, it's
chewing.
kind of it's a yoga principle, right? You should not drink liquid when you're eating, but you should actually, each bite of food, you should chew 21 to 25 times, turn the food actually into liquid itself. It's the first basic step of digestion. Much healthier,
Oh,
happier life.
that's right.
So
That's
slow
right.
chewing.
Slow
Actually,
chewing. I mean, I think that I don't know that that's officially part of the slow food movement, but I think it's important.
it actually is the preface to my book.
I love it. I love it so much.
So yeah,
Oh
give
my
us
God.
a sneak
When you say the
peek.
poems were a collaborative effort, so you wrote with some other people as well.
Yeah, so there's 10 of us. We met at a writing retreat in Tuscany. There was actually 25 of us that met. 10 people decided, myself included, to be a part of the book. I curated it, so I'm not a poet. I gathered people together and kind of ushered this book to come together. It was edited by a really fantastic poet named Sarah Hansen. She's out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And she edited the book for us. And then it's 10 people. Some are novice poets, some are very advanced poets, but coming together to talk about it's 4 cycles or 4 phases of grief, basically, and healing. And so from anger to sadness to recognition to rebuilding. And so it's a 4 phase book. It's really beautifully laid out by a company called Neon Pig. They do all my book covers and book interiors. So it's got color and interesting ways that the poems are laid out. So it's really, really, really quite lovely, and I'm excited about it. So
You
What
have a
prompted
sample. You have
you
a
to
sample
want
for
to,
us. You have a
sorry, God,
sample.
she's gonna give a sample, I think, but what
yeah.
prompted you to want to curate a book like that? Like, where did that start for you?
So a couple of different kind of lampposts came up. So one, I wanted something to document. Well, so this is a little bit of a side story. So I believe that everyone can give themselves a verb, and everyone should, and kind of step into what is your verb. And
Hmm.
my verb is the amplifier, right? I believe in amplifying the impact of others. It's why I got into publishing, to focus on first time authors, to focus on emerging authors. I want people, I mean, you guys are living it with this podcast, right? Helping people get their stories out in the world for whatever that purpose is.
Right.
And it's also at the heart of all my service work, right? Is amplifying the work that others are doing. These nonprofits do these things day in and day out, and I'm just there for a week or 2 weeks and stepping in. But I then want to talk about it. I want to help them. I often write a report afterwards as a consultant on these projects. Like, here's how you can, take what you want, leave what you don't want. But like, here's how. And a lot of times they know that in advance, and they'll ask me to do that to help them improve what they're doing on the ground in these places. So the amplifier thing is just a string that runs through my entire personality. And so I'm standing in Tuscany, we're saying goodbye, we're doing these hugs, we've had this transformative writing and healing week, and we're scattering back all over the world. And I just thought I wanted something. I left there on the airplane thinking, I want something to connect us. And I want the opportunity. I have this platform of having a publishing industry. I mean, I'm sorry, a publishing house, that I understand the publishing industry. And a lot of these women are wanting to eventually do bigger and better publishing, and how can I help them get their start? And if it's too scary to do a book on your own, how about we just come together and we do one together? And then it became, well, what if we just do poetry? Because poetry, over this past weekend in LA, I learned from James Marlin, who's a really, really phenomenal fiction writer. And he says, I read poetry before I sit down and write every single time. Because he's like, there's something about the simplicity of the poetic word that can help you get into a mindset of
It
creativity.
changes its vibration, I'm sure. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Raises your vibration. And so that I didn't have that quote back when I decided to do this book, but it was really reaffirming for me because I was like, something about doing this as a poetry work, and we're able to capture the human experience of healing in an interesting way, right? And in different people's perspectives, right? And so that's really how it came about. It was just to honor these other women who really, I mean, I went on that retreat at a time when I was very broken. And I always say these women helped fix what they did not break.
Perfect.
And that was really powerful. And this was my gift back to them. And really fun to do, quite honestly.
How do
Now, the
you?
mention of the different stages of the book itself, I almost simulate when, I'm sorry, Jenny.
No,
I'll
you're
get back
not.
to you.
No, you're
It
not.
simulates someone going through a traumatic life event, though. It's almost like a cancer or something. And it's kind of a common theme, the different stages of grief
Mm-hmm.
and rebounding. Now,
Yeah.
they had all had their own experiences with this, I suppose, or
Yeah, and they brought to it different. I mean, we have one woman in the book, one author in the book who is actively battling cancer at this moment. We have some that have battled addiction, neglect, abuse, different things. But some of them are just, they just grew up in kind of a hard, unloving environment, parents that just didn't really show love, right? They didn't grow up nurtured, and they had to figure out how to nurture themselves as and so it's not always a particular incident, but it's just this idea that the poems are grouped according to kind of the theme, right? Poems around grief and whatever grief looks like for you. Poems around, you know, anger, right? We're angry sometimes, right? It's part of it. Poems around recognition and the healing, and then poems around thriving, right? It ends with the fourth thing, which is you shake off the ashes and you thrive and you really soar again, to use a bird metaphor yet again.
Love that. So, listen, in today's world where we know nothing to be real anymore because of the power of AI and all of that craziness that comes along with it, how do you know when you're publishing someone's book that they've written it and they haven't just had, gone on to ChatGPT or any of those other, AI tools and said, write me a book about this? Like, how do we keep the authenticity? Like, I always think about, like, is that changing the world of publishing? Is it changing the world of books? Like, what's happening there?
Yeah, and I think this is a great question. And I have a very strong opinion about AI, and it will probably surprise you. I believe it is a powerful tool that we should embrace. It does not replace a human. It does not replace real writing. And quite honestly, I can spot it a mile away. Like, I know if something I'm reading is not in the author's voice, because you certainly can't write a book from AI and expect the language to work into a consistent story. Like, AI is not quite that good. Maybe one day it will be, and I, kind of don't like that idea, but I do think it is like I know when their voice isn't authentic, right? I can read a passage and know, this doesn't sound like you. And I don't even have to necessarily call the author out. I can just say, this segment, this doesn't feel like your voice. It really changes from here to here. And most of the time they'll say, oh yeah, I had some help or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, you gotta take that out. The places where I think AI is really valuable is, I want to replace the word whatever. And yes, there are websites on Google that do that, but they don't do it really dynamically. But you can put that into ChatGPT, and a list of words will come out that will spark new ideas for you, and then you go back to the page and you craft that, right? Or I'm looking for this citation. This is the book name and this is the author, and I need the full citation. Great. AI can do that for you, right? And saves you a lot of time. If you're a nonfiction writer, that saves you a lot of time, right? So there are ways to use a tool. You don't have to be afraid of it, but it can't replace the human voice. And if you try to squeeze in that, it becomes very apparent, right?
it's just to be devil's advocate for a moment. I think the terminology artificial implies it's something which is not real, but in fact, isn't artificial intelligence the result of the combination of the collective?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
So
it does. I
all the
mean,
books, all the thoughts. So I mean,
it
Yeah, and the more that you
it comes from a
use
basis
it,
from
the
reality.
more, yeah, the more that you use it, the more that it gets to know you. Like there was a thing recently that said, prompt ChatGPT by saying, what do you like if you've been using it for longer than 3 months, you can ask ChatGPT, what do you know about me that I don't know about myself?
Mhm.
And it was this whole thing that went viral that you should ask what it did. So I was like, and I use it for like different things that you're talking about. Like I'm gonna actually open it, I'll tell you what it said about me. I use it for things that where I'm like, I need a different word for this, or I don't like, using this here, or help me understand like what could I, say here that would tie it together, like little things here or there. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
not writing like you are, I'm talking about for like social media posts, or sometimes I'm delivering content, whatever it might be. But I thought it was really interesting, like what it said about me. Like I
You think
looked
it was
at it.
accurate?
I mean, it wasn't anything mind blowing. Like it was just like, um, it, it was just, one insight could be that your dedication to fostering deep connections, whether through leadership workshops, your podcast, or keynote, suggests a fundamental belief that human potential is best unlocked when people truly seen and valued. Yeah, no crap. Anyone that knows me would be like, that's exactly what you speak about, right? Like,
Right,
there's
right,
nothing there that chat like there's nothing there that they knew about me that no one else would know just by knowing me. So
right.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So, I mean, I got my PhD 20 years ago, and if you do qualitative research that long ago, there was a software that would take your transcripts or your research, your data, and it would pull out themes, right? It was a basically a pre-AI, right? Now it was very rudimentary, and it used to have to do a lot of work to even get it in there properly, and a lot of work to work with the results, not like as easy as it is now. But
Right.
it's the same idea. It's taking what it's being fed and redrafting it to pull out the main points, right? Then and I use a couple different AI tools. I use Notebook LM for writing briefs on to before I write. So I write for the Colorado Springs magazine. And that's an
Of
interview
course you do.
based that's an interview based style magazine. And so I interview these people. It's human connection. I'm interviewing them. I take the transcripts. I put it into Notebook LM and I say, please pull out the themes. And it'll pull out five, six themes. And then I write the article because it helps me synthesize because I was in it. I was knee deep. I was in the weeds interviewing them. And I don't always see the patterns that emerge, right? That's a great way to use AI to say, okay, here's the six themes. Now I can go write this article because I see that this theme repeated itself over and over again. And that's to me, that's using a tool in the best possible
Oh,
way,
yeah.
and not bastardizing what is the human version of writing great, of being a great writer and writing great content.
We just saw the video yesterday. David was showing me that it was like a new tool for when you're being lectured in school, that it will basically record the whole lecture and then give you index cards to study based on the lecture.
Hmm.
And I was
Hmm.
like, when you talk about being in it, I think sometimes when you're trying to write down notes as someone's talking to you, like, I mean, obviously you cannot effectively multitask. If you're writing something down, you're missing something. Like you have to spend 100% of your attention on one thing to get everything to retain all of it. So I was like, wow, that would have been super helpful in school because you
Yeah.
really are, you're writing notes, you're missing something, whether you think you are or not. And so to have it record that and then to give you, and then to also be in it, like you said, to be there, it's almost like three-dimensional that it helps you be in all three places at one time and gives you the most output. So I don't know. I think, yeah, I
Yeah.
think
I mean, I think these tools are, you know, the more we learn about them, the better we can find uses for them. They're not a replacement. And for people who have a lot of fear around that, yeah, it means you have to adapt. You have to change. You have to be discerning. There's a lot of fear. Like you mentioned, I dabble in the TV and film world through documentary and aspirations. And there's a lot of fear around AI as it relates to the visual mediums. And rightly so, right? It is going to
yeah.
change people's jobs and
Melanie,
potentially eliminate some, but they have to the people who are embracing it are finding ways to enhance their I mean it's
Yeah.
the industrial revolution all over again.
can it become sentient?
You know, I don't know. I don't know
Hmm.
the answer to that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So what's next for you?
Hold on that topic, with all our various travels, travel logs, experiences all over the continent,
Sorry,
doctors,
listener, it's coming
jungles.
again.
Yeah, gotta do it. Have you ever had a UFO experience? Seeing one, hearing one, There must be something you can't figure. You can't get out of your psyche. Okay, spill your guts, baby.
Have you?
What have I?
Yeah.
No,
Never
no,
once
I really haven't.
in the
Ghosts
jungle.
maybe, yeah, but
Say again.
not a
Oh,
ghost maybe, but not UFO. I have stayed in some historic places that I believe there were some supernatural powers hanging around. Either they have not found their peace yet, or they're just having fun. I kind of believe in happy ghosts in some ways. I think we find them scary, but they're just having some fun with us. But yeah, no, Gulf Breeze, where I grew up, was the famous 1990s UFO sighting that made unsolved mysteries, right? And then was later debunked as being a camera trick. But that was a little
Man, I
town I grew up
sure
in. So
want to tell
UFOs were
you.
kind of a city mascot for a while.
know that. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll have to Google that.
I
Yeah,
Huh.
you have to Google it. Just a Gulf Breeze, Florida, UFO. It'll come up. There's, it was debunked, but it drew national attention. There was lots of like news crews around for multiple weeks and maybe months. I don't know. I was a
I can't
child.
even hear the theme song to Unsolved Mysteries without getting scared.
So it's interesting. It's
So what's next for you? I mean, I know you have this book, Incongruent and Reader. It's all about travel and trauma and transformation. You can learn more about how she climbed Everest and how she got to where she is. And I really love, oh, by the way, I do get a shout out in the book. But I really love the way that it's written because it takes you back and forth from life to your hike. And it's this really cool story of sharing with you. Like, I don't even know how you come up to do that and how you can write like that. Like, what style of writing is that even called? What's that called, the way that you did that?
it's memoir, which is just a narrative nonfiction
Yeah, but the
book.
way that you go back and forth, like you go from like it really captivates you. I remember it was my emergency book, and we were going on a family vacation, and I was reading it. Like I just kept reading it, and then my husband's like, "Are you gonna put it down?" I'm like, "Go to bed. I'll put it down in a minute." And I like really could not put it down. I was reading it, and I was crying, and I was laughing and crying and laughing, and then I wanted to call you and be like, "Let me give you a hug." But it's not my story; it's your story. But what I thought was really cool about it is that as I'm reading your story, which we have, we are very similar people, but totally different backgrounds and totally different
Right.
paths, totally different lives. But it was just, you could feel through your words so much of that emotion. And it was a weird kind of way to like connect what you were feeling with somebody that I may have felt at some point, but for a totally different reason. And I just thought it was amazing. It
You
was just,
still have that book, Jamie?
yeah, right here. You want to read it?
Of course,
Wrote
absolutely.
it like 8 times. Are you not present?
Looks like the cover of a UFO incident. Look at that. This is and also, I'm sure the Sherpa in the mountains is critically important.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All
Yep.
right. So what's next for you?
Oh gosh. So yes, I'm working on two books, and I'm not really sure which one. This is an everyday battle on which one is going to get my attention, which one's going to come first. One is a more research-based book called The Independence Myth. All around, my definition of resilience is actually adaptability and connection. And in Western societies, particularly, but even in some Eastern societies, we put too much emphasis on the individual and not enough on the connection foundation. And I have some really phenomenal examples of that. People that we have held in high esteem as being this individual spirit, when actually, if you read their memoirs, if you do the deep dive on them as people and not just the byline, the
Mhm.
storyline, you actually learn that their foundation is around connection. And so, just really talking about that definition of resilience, and then Into the Storm, which will be another memoir that picks up kind of where Incongruent left off, and kind of talks about a life of you know what happens in life's wreckage, and just some different stories, different connection points, more stories about global travel and how to connect. But one of the things that's really I want to touch back on really quick about what you just said is that my goal in writing is for people to see themselves in the story. So I have a unique story, obviously I have a unique life, but we all have some similar human
Mhm.
experiences in one degree or another. And it was never more true than I have a wonderful teammate now that I recently hired named Carolyn Peters. And she took my book to her. She's in her 20s. She took my book to her book club, which is a bunch of college friends from around the country that do a virtual book club. And all of them in their 20s, late 20s, early 30s, found connection points to this book. And I thought, if that, if if I can continue to connect to little pockets, if people can see themselves in these stories, then some of this is human experience that is timeless.
Sure.
The circumstances may change. We get older, the stories stay the same age. But they're just connection points and that I think is what we all long for when we read something. We either want to be taken into a fantasy world where we're completely disconnected, or if it's nonfiction, we want to connect with it on some way. And so that's what I strive to do in all of that. So yeah, so I have two books coming out. I am starting a writer's coaching program in the new year in 2025, hopefully January, but might be put off, which will have some asynchronous and then some time with me, one-on-one time with me, to just help people move the needle on their story and getting their story out into the world. A lot of times it is the gremlins as much as the talent, but we need a combination of both, of like the actual um, editing and writing and learning the craft, but we also just need some cheerleading and so that's so I'm going to do some really broaden the literary coaching that I already do on a small scale. I want to do a bigger
We
scale.
had one of our guests was that Jamie knows was actually a Reiki therapist.
Oh, I
And we're
love
probably
that.
going to work out a doing she'll do a Reiki circle, Reiki family circle for us. But I'm sure if she did Reiki on top of you, she probably would burn her hands. Woo! Wow.
That idea. Let's test that out.
Woo.
I will have to go see her next time I visit.
Yes. Well,
Let us
yeah.
know. We'll set it up.
I love it. I love it so
I'll
much.
get her asbestos gloves or something.
Well, Mel, I am obviously so happy to always connect with you. We have such busy lives. We never get a chance to just spend talking. Every once in a while we do. We get to see each other, which is even better. But I am grateful that you took time out of your busy Monday. I know Tuesdays are your really busy day. And whenever someone's listening to this, but I'm just that you took time to talk with us about your life. And I just think it's so cool. And that's why we started this podcast, was to just talk with different people about what they do, where they came from, how they got there, what they're, what's going on in their world, because I believe in that power of connection, as you know that.
No
And
question.
it's like the more you hear those stories, like you were saying in your writing, you want people to feel something emotional, some type of connection to it. And that was the goal of this podcast, was to tell different stories so people feel less alone, less isolated. And obviously COVID made us feel incredibly isolated, but I don't feel like we've ever really come back from that 100%. And
Did it
so,
really happen?
yeah,
It really happened.
it really
I think it would be
happened.
incredibly, what's the word I'm looking for? Appropriate if we could as we wrap it up, to have a passage from the poems, from the final section on thriving.
I'm
Very
thriving.
powerful.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I
Because
hear you.
I've got the anger, I've got the disappointment. I want to thrive. I want to fly. I want a cape. So,
I have a cape. I got a cape at a walk this week. I'll give it to you.
okay.
Yeah.
And so, what is the name? Because by the time this airs, the book will be out. So, what is the name of the book again?
It's called Shaking Off the Ashes,
Shaking
and
Off
it'll
the
be
Ash.
available everywhere, including the Inked Elephant website, which is
Okay.
I always try to promote indie purchases, indie bookstores, and that includes
Got
my
it.
own
Is that
um,
just inkelephant.com?
inked with inked ed, so inked elephant publishing.com.
Got it. So, listener, as Melanie is getting prepared to give us a excerpt from that phenomenal poetry book, you can go to inkedelephantpublishing.com to see more of that, to purchase it there. Also, if you've got a book that you're thinking about writing, you've got, you want your story told, feel free, call her, reach out to her. I know firsthand how incredible she is, and to help you really start to get your thoughts wrapped around what works, what doesn't work, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and start that conversation. Are you ready with a excerpt for
I'm
us?
ready.
Let's hear it.
So this is called On My 100th Birthday.
Hey, that's too personal. Okay, I'm ready.
All right. The things we would say when the hourglass is slowly trickling its last sands, let me say them now. Why wait to utter the words that matter most? On my 100th birthday, let me stand on a wooden bench and scream them out loud, despite looks that scream fear of my falling. Because I am my mother's daughter, and I have also fallen far too often to care anymore. On my 100th birthday, I raise a glass of gratitude to my parents, who loved despite never understanding me, for whom I grew wings of my own and a soft place to land. On my 100th birthday, I raise a glass of gratitude To my lovers, some great and some shit. Because of you, my depth of independence grew, and also my vulnerability and strength. On my 100th birthday, I raise a glass of gratitude to my service organizations who own part of my soul and all of my heart and made me a better person in the process. On my 100th birthday, I raise a glass of gratitude to the warrior women who loved me because you held me, lifted me, honored me. I thrived. And also, with humility, I fall at your feet. On my 100th birthday, I leave with one request for anyone listening when I leave this earth, because I have no heirs, and also I long to be remembered. On my 100th birthday, tell them I had a beautiful soul, so they know I tried to be good to the world. Tell them I was a little bit mean, so they know I was not perfect. Tell them I showed up, so they know my love of others. Simply tell them I existed, because that will be enough.
Wow.
Strong stuff. That is definitely not AI. That's personal stuff.
That's incredible. Who is the author of that poem?
Oh, that's me.
Oh,
That was you?
Oh, that was me. Yeah,
Woo!
without permission, I try not to read other authors' poems, although they probably would have all given me permission. But when I ask to read someone else's poem, I have them read it to me first, so I understand the cadence that they prefer it be read. And so, because I was on the spot, I had to read one of my own, not to be
wow.
unhumble, but because
I'll tell you,
I.
baby, you look great for 100. I'll tell you that.
Yes,
Wow.
thanks, thanks.
Very touching. Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, Melanie, I can't even begin to tell you how grateful I am to have you here and to have had you share your story with us. Based on the poem that you just read, I was trying to find something I wanted to share with you. And it says, if you live to be 100, I want to live to be 100 minus 1 day, so I never have to live without you. So
Oh,
for my piglet, my poo, my Tigger, all of the above, we've had lots of journeys and lots of adventures, and I know there will be many, many more to come. We're the same age, so I can actually say that to you. Um,
that's right.
and I hope that when we are in actually celebrating our 100th birthday, you are still here for that. And we are living somewhere in Boca Raton or Tuscany, uh, in some villa, drinking our wine and just laughing about all the incongruent, deep storms and challenges and successes that we have had together. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. You're the best.
Yes. Thank you guys for having
Happy
me. This
trails
was,
and happy Tuesday.
thank you so much. You guys are awesome.
Love
Thanks.
you. I'll
Love
talk to you later,
you.
my friend.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
You know what's so funny, Dad? I was thinking like as I'm listening to her speak, like I've known her for a long time since I was 18. So talk about like the development of our lives together. And we've been through so much together personally and professionally. And we do a lot of similar stuff. We talk all the time. But I'm thinking to myself, like I'm your kid and you're listening to my friend talk like this. And I start thinking about my daughter. And I'm like, wow, it must be so like incredible for you to hear that one of my friends is this amazing, like, like you're looking at like you would have known her coming to like college week or family weekend, and now to see who she is and what she's doing, does that even like resonate with you that it's like my friend and I'm your kid?
I see you as amazing as well. I think a lot of her strength now, when she says she was wrecked, there was some sort of serious trauma there that she not only overcame, but she came through the other end and strived. I did want to pursue it.
It's
There's
all in the
love too.
book. A lot of
Yeah,
it's
too
in the
much
book.
pain there. So we would in the in Congress book. I want to read that book itself. But the strength of purpose to get through something like that, that there is light and is success on the other side. She's had a great, crazy story.
Yeah. I mean, she's just like, she's amazing. I just think the world of her, and everyone's got a different life and a different story. And when you read
Sure.
her book, you'll see, and then the way that her book ends, the next book, Into the Storm, it took
Well,
a massive
when you
change.
were college roommates,
Yeah.
how was she describe her person at that time? Was she withdrawn at that time? Was she
No,
was
never, never. Super outgoing. She got married pretty early out of college. That marriage did not last. Then
how many years?
I don't remember how long they were married for. Then she was married once again after that, and the story you'll read in Incongruent will be there. That was over, and then she had her third wedding during COVID. And that has since not moved forward either. But it's an interesting path and an interesting story, each one of them for different reasons. And I think that knowing her, she was just here a few months back, and sitting with her, I think this is her. She's now finally kind of like got her thing, like she
She's
was like,
found herself.
yeah. And it's just so awesome to
She
see.
has a burning core inside, which is driving her personal machine.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's both a curse and a blessing.
Yeah.
And I cannot profess low goals to her because her goals are always lofty, and she's pursuing the next frontier. But she's a dynamo. I would love our Reiki master to go work with her and see, whoa, baby, there's a lot of stuff coming off
Well,
that.
and Amber is from Colorado. So I need to connect them because they're like from the same area in Colorado. So next time Amber goes out, I'm going to tell her, I'll see Amber this week. I'm going to tell her to go do that. But yeah, it's so incredible. Everyone's got this like own story, and it's just.
I want you to get with Amber, so when Candace is in town and Iris is in town, we'll do like a family, maybe at the beach house, do a family Reiki circle.
Sure.
I'll give you that
Yeah,
date.
it's still being recorded, right?
Let me see. Oh, yes, it is. We are. Yes.
So just so you all know, we don't own a beach house.
Hey, don't ruin it. Don't destroy the magic.
Anyway, listener, we hope that you have enjoyed our story today. We certainly have. And if you're not listening, you should be, because that was awesome. So, Dad, I love you.
Love you too, baby. Another great day, another great story. We walked a mile. Actually, we walked a half a mile in her shoes.
I'm exhausted. It's a
Yeah,
long
those heels
distance up and
those
down.
heels are killing me.
Until next time, listener, what's your story? If you know someone who could be a great guest, please reach out to us at connect@jamiemarco.com. That's JAIMEMARCO.com, or just go to the website. Check it out.
And if they've had a UFO experience, they go to the top of the list.
Oh my goodness. Goodbye.
Adios. Hey, thank you for tuning into today's What's Your Story podcast.
To learn more or share your story, go to jamiemarco.com. That's www.jaimemarco.com. And we will see you next time.